Guys, what are we doing? Back to Ja Morant. I was making a video yesterday about the 4 destinations that ESPN just came out with, and I like 2 of them. Like, I really like the idea of him going to Minnesota and the Raptors. And now I see that for the Raptors, they've taken the angle of pushing for AD, which to me was more of a questionable route. But for the Raptors to get Ja, like, I would have loved that idea because it made sense. I didn't think their seating was too high. And for Minnesota, I feel like their seating is a little higher than the Raptors are, but they get to take on this Ja Morant deal that while he can't really shoot, he gets to pair up with Ant, who's one of the best shooters in the league. And I do like that combination. We're talking about highlight reel after highlight reel for the Grizzlies. Wolves, my bad, Wolves. But now the 2 trade talks that I'm seeing the most is Milwaukee and Miami. And in the video that I was making yesterday, Miami was the one where I was like, bro, I really don't want to see this happen. Because with Miami, the trade package that ESPN had, I think, was Tyler Hero and Simone Fontecchio, which we'd be giving out 2 of our best 3-point shooters besides Norman Powell. For a guy who can't shoot, I mean, this guy's shooting like 20% from 3 and is not efficient from the floor at all. Now, I understand that he's not happy where he's at and he doesn't want to deal with Memphis anymore. Like, I do understand that aspect, so he doesn't really care about how he's doing. But still, like, we're giving away Tyler Hero. If we stuck with Tyler Hero and Bam, then of course I'd be like, heck yeah, let's stick with it. But it's not going to happen. We'll most likely have to move off of Tyler Hero. And if I'm looking at Ja, then I would want the version of him that was like in talks for like MVP at like 21 years old or whatever that was. And that would have been cool to have. But we're looking at a Ja who's like just disgruntled with everything that's going on around him. And we're just not sure what he brings to the table completely. Like, if we trade for him, is because we're looking at the upside of like, yeah, we got Ja because he was a perennial superstar. Like, this guy was, according to ESPN years ago, going to be the face of the league, which nobody really thought that, but he was still on that track to be one of the best players, at least more fun players to watch. Like, this guy was dunking left and right. And with injuries, and this is the part that worries me for him as a player, the injuries gets in the way. So I understand why he can't dunk as much anymore. But the problem is that he just can't shoot. Like, if you would have, adjusted his game to be able to still drive in really well, limit the way he's landing, like try to make sure that he's not landing bad like how he was before, and shooting better, flow game better, midi better, 3-point shot better, I'd be more comfortable with it. But the problem is we're looking for someone who it doesn't look like he's going to be able to shoot consistently throughout his NBA career. And with injuries piling up, he's saying he's not going to dunk as much as time goes on. So now it's like we're going for a pure slasher who can't shoot, and we're going to bring him to Miami, giving away our 2 best 3-point shooters. I mean, our only shooters would really be Norman Powell and a couple other guys. And that's really about it. If we kept Simone Fontecchio, I'd be a little bit more comfortable. But like, we lost Duncan Robinson. Obviously, we've lost Max Strus. We lost Gabe Vincent. Of course, these are a couple years ago. But I remember looking at our team and being like, no, we got some shooters. Now it doesn't feel that way. Like, we have Norman Powell and Tyler Hero, Simone Fontecchio, Davion Mitchell's getting better and better, but it just doesn't feel like, I don't feel comfortable giving these guys like the most 3-point shots in the game. So if I'm thinking about Ja in Miami, I'm thinking it can be really, really fun. But if I'm really looking at like what's going to give us the best chance to win basketball, win playoff games, win the finals, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about a team making moves, I understand some teams like the Kings are okay with being mediocre. They just want to hit the playoffs because they don't want to have that draw like they did before. But if you're Miami, a big city who's had 3 championships under their belt and have been to 2 championships since, why would we aim for anything mediocre? So I do understand that we missed out on Bradley Beal, Dame, Donovan Mitchell, KD. We missed out on that. And of course, this is one of those where it's like, well, we got to make some sort of move, but it just doesn't feel like a championship move unless the only thing that makes sense to me is that we're kind of matching the timeline because we got Ja and Bam. And if Ja continues to be that player that he once was before, and we can make more moves to fill out the holes around the roster, then I can see this coming out to be a great move in the future. But do we trust our GM to make those full-on moves to make our roster complete? I mean, it's not like how it was a couple years ago or years ago where it was like we have a super team that we can go to the finals with. It's not like that anymore. The CBA is getting a lot stricter. The luxury tax isn't nice. I mean, we're making moves. Every team is making moves left and right because of it. So you have to make sure that every single move is calculated. And while, yes, there are some times where you just got to take the risk on it, I just don't know if that's one that I'm willing to bite on. Like, personally, for me, I really wouldn't call it, and I would probably just want to fully rebuild. But then again, there's the Heat, there's the fan inside of me. Like, looking outside of just success, the fan part of me of the Heat wants to see Ja in a Heat uniform because then what that means is that we keep Bam. And what that means is that Bam keeps racking up those all-time Heat assist numbers, blocks numbers, points numbers, all that. His numbers keep going up, and I love seeing that he's second in the Heat most points. I love seeing him up there in the rebounds and the blocks. Like, I really do love it because of the fact that he's a franchise, not a franchise player, but like he's a Heatle, like for life. This guy's just gonna be a Heat, and I want to see that happen. And I would just love to see that alongside Ja. But there's another part of me that's like, wow, there's gonna be a lot of times where I'm gonna be really happy seeing Ja and Bam together. It's also gonna be like, dang, was this really worth it in the long run? If he joins and he ends up being that superstar that everybody thought it would be, then yes, bro, I would love that because we bought low on him. If I'm thinking about Tyler Hero versus Prime Ja, I'm taking Prime Ja. If I'm taking Prime Ja versus Bam, I'm taking Prime Ja. Like, this guy was crazy in his prime. But it sucks. This guy was drafted 6 years ago, or almost 7 now. And we're talking about his prime, which was like 2 or 3 seasons after he was drafted. Like, it is kind of sad to see it that way. But can you see any team winning a championship with Ja as the 1A, as the main guy? I personally cannot. And I mean this when I say this, bro. I really hope I'm wrong. If we get to see a point guard who just drives in mainly and dunks and get the highlight reel and can play consistent, if we see a Ja type of player win a championship as the main guy, win finals MVP, I'm all for it. I'm not rooting against him, but I don't want to be unrealistic. You don't see that often. How many point guards in history win championships as the finals MVP? I'll name them for you right now. Magic Johnson, Steph Curry, SGA, Jerry West. Like, you gotta be up to Oscar Robertson. You gotta be really, and even then he was, you know what I mean? He was with Kareem. You gotta be really, really good. And is Ja on that type of level? I don't think so. Do I hope he will be? Yes, because could you imagine if Ja's skill set ended up being one of the best players in the NBA, if not the best? That'd be one of the most fun players we get to ever watch. Such a short guy, 6'3", dunking on everybody. But like I said, I don't want to be realistic. I don't want to be unrealistic. So, like I said, going back to it, do we feel comfortable getting Ja, looking at Bam, and being like, this is the duo for the future? I don't feel comfortable with that. But like I said, I hope I'm wrong. If I can see Ja suit up for the Heat and play real championship like really go out there and compete, bring that fire back in him, I would love it. But you know what I'm worried about? I'm worried about another Miami Heat Jimmy Butler situation. I'm worried that we're going to have a couple years where it's going to be really cool with Jimmy, like how it was with Jimmy. Super cool with Ja for a couple years, but we don't have that time anymore. Bam in a couple years is going to be 30. And so if we have a couple years of Ja and Bam and they're playing pretty cool, but then at some point there's just locker room issues again, like how it was with Jimmy, and it ends up just not being the right fit, we find out Bam's already 31, 32. And of course, people's primes are lasting longer than they were before, but it's just like, man, I just don't want to see that happen. Like, honestly, truthfully, I don't want to see that happen. So I, at the moment, don't think it's the right move for the Heat. However, if they end up making the move, you're going to see me come on here and be hyped about it because I'm going to get a Ja Morant jersey. I'm going to come on here and be hyped because we get to see Ja Morant in the Heat jersey. I'm always for big names. Even if we got Bradley Beal, I would have been hyped, bro. I like seeing big names in the Heat. But as for right now, I don't think it's the right move. And then for the Bucks, I think it's an even worse move. Because if the Bucks get him, which I'm so worried that they might actually go for it. If the Bucks get him, that's even worse. You got Giannis and Ja. Like, the whole reason why I don't like Ja in the Heat, like play style wise, because he's heavily influenced by screens. That's why the last coach got fired. The Heat have been implementing this free-flowing offense of run and gun, fast-paced offense. That's why they've been doing pretty decent and limiting the amount of screens until Tyler Hero came back. But even then, like, we got a guy who just can't shoot, pulling up on three. So if we're looking at Ja's play style and we're looking at Giannis and the Bucks, what happened with Giannis and Dame? Giannis couldn't set those big body screens that Dame was used to getting. And it's not because it's Giannis' fault. It's just that that's not Giannis' comfort zone. Dude, Giannis goes out there and gets the ball and makes the play. For Giannis to set a screen, he's thinking about goal screening, slipping. Like, it's just not for Giannis to set those screens. That's why the pick and roll, every once in a while, you see a flash of, like, how do you guard that? But the rest of the time, they were playing better without each other on the court. When Dame was on the court and Giannis was off the court, Dame would do a lot better. When Giannis was on the court and Dame was off the court, he'd do a lot better. But when they were both on the court, they were not playing well, not to the standard that they should have. So what makes you think that Ja is gonna be any better? He's a screen reliant guy and he just cannot shoot. Like I said, and I cannot stress this enough, like I really do mean it. I do not mean this as I don't believe in Ja. I don't say this as I have anything against him. I say this as like I'm just looking at the stats from the last year and the year before that and the trajectory that he's going on. I do understand that a lot of it has to do with locker room issues and what's going on off the court and what's going on in those meetings that he's having with the coaches and the GMs. I do understand, like really, I do understand that there are external factors that play into this. So it's not just him and his play style. However, I have a set amount of years that I can look at, and I have a set amount of plays that I can look at, especially from last season and this season, to be able to give me a decent answer as to who I think Ja Morant will be. Because just because this is off the court stuff that's affecting him doesn't mean I'm going to look over the injuries. Doesn't mean I'm going to start like just skimming over some things that I feel like are important. I feel like I have decent amount of information to tell you that it's not going to work with Giannis and it's not going to work locked on with the Heat. But I hope it does, because Ja is an amazing player to watch when he's going all in. When he has that fire under him, he really goes out. I mean, the highlights from his first couple years were crazy. So I want to say this is not a diss to Ja. I just feel like we need to be realistic with the expectations of what we're going to expect out of him for the next couple of years. He cannot be the main guy on a championship team. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If you just accept the role, or not accept the role, if you just accept the fact that like he's just not a 1A guy, he can fit and help so many teams out. Now I want to get this video out as soon as possible because I really do think in the next couple of days he's going to be traded. There's not a lot of time left, but I'm just worried because they're already in talks. The Miami Heat and Ja Morant are already in talks about what the trade could be. And the next video can well likely be me with a Ja Morant jersey. So I don't know. But I just can't wait to see what happens because this really is an impactful stuff. I mean, we're going to look at the Grizzlies just going to another full rebuild only 6 years after they went for this second overall pick in Ja Morant, Rookie of the Year. And we're going to see either the Bucks or the Heat or another team just get into this brand new era with Ja Morant as one of your main guys. So hopefully Ja Morant becomes a superstar and starts shooting like at least 35% from three. And if you get a 35% from three from Ja, and you start getting decent mid-range shots, because I know he was struggling with that as well, we could see a very different side of Ja. But it depends on what happens. I want to see how his training goes, and if Miami's where he wants to be, it's probably what it ends up being. So we're gonna see what happens. But let me know what you guys think down below. Please subscribe if you want to watch more videos of me talking about basketball. I'm posting 3 to 4 times a week. Leave a like. Appreciate it. Thank you. Peace.